coming to literature search, the other side of the coin. How do you find the literature that you're going to use to cite, to reference? Okay. So now when we need literature or updates about anything, our levels of need can vary from general to specific. Like, it's as general as this, something more specific. First question was, what are antimalarials? Second, more specific, what are adverse effects of antimalarial drugs? And the third is a very hyper-specific question. What is more effective for severe malaria, artesunate or quinine? Accordingly, we have resources that map to these needs best. Okay? So for the first type, there are basic background or factual information resources like dictionaries, encyclopedias, textbooks, etc. We've studied all these right from school days. In medicine, nursing, physiotherapy, you have specific ones for all these kinds of resources and you're pretty well versed with them. So for any basic stuff that you need to read or reference, go to such sources. The second and the most important for research is current research resources, past research resources. Journals are obviously the most important. They always help you stay updated with research. But there's also unpublished research in the form of thesis, conference presentations, clinical trial registries. Almost every country has clinical trial registries where anybody who's doing a clinical trial has to register their trial there and keep updating it. So ongoing trials, just concluded trials, those registries are rich sources of information. So to track research, published is journals, unpublished is all these. In the long run, you need to know how to track all of these. And the third kind, where it is about making a decision or making a policy, then you need to find result-oriented research, which are analysis of or synthesis of the second kind of research-based resources. So here we have broadly three types. There are publications called systematic reviews, which analyze the high-end studies of large trials. So they provide evidence whether something works, something doesn't work, we don't know yet, or we are still not very clear. Then in practice, you have two types, guidelines, which tell you step 1, for this kind of condition, you do this, step 2, you do this, step 3, you do this. Summaries are like revision tools. So a popular summary resource is UpToDate. There's another one called Dynamed. There's a website called Clinical Key where there's one section which has summaries. So today many websites have summaries. So those are all condensed update resources. So all these kinds, the type 3 are very, very useful for clinicians. Okay. Moving on, let's go to how actually we should search. So where to go, we saw in the last slide, and how do you actually search, we'll go now. From this point, I'm going to use PubMed as the main example. And for those who have not used PubMed at all, I'll give you a short introduction in a minute. First thing, anywhere we search, we've got to remember two fundamentals. The first is the computer gives us results that contain our search terms. There's no guarantee that the results are about whatever. So if we have typed malaria, every hit that we get has the word malaria, no guarantee that it is about malaria. The second principle, second fundamental is we can specify where the results should contain our search terms by tagging the terms. I want my result in the title of the page, I want it at the end of the page, something like that. I'll explain these as we go. So as I said, I'm going to use PubMed as an example, but these are applicable in many other resources as well, these two fundamentals. So the first fundamental, this is a PubMed search. If I type asthma in COPD patients, one of the results is this, which is very, very relevant, and we really ideally expect all results to be like this. But the computer thinks this is also relevant because the word asthma and COPD is there, but it doesn't understand that the word excluding means it is not about it. Okay? It's only focusing on the fact that asthma and COPD are there. Second fundamental, I talked about tagging. So we are saying we can do a special kind of search telling the computer results should contain our search terms that the computer knows in specific parts or areas of the results. Now this is a typical journal article metadata in PubMed. So a typical record. So on top you have the title, in the second row you have the authors, in the third row the journal name, year, volume number, page number, etc. So you can say, I want my word to be in the title, I want my word to be in the author area, etc. We'll be learning how to do all this. So how do we do this? We specify by tagging. For example, in PubMed, if I say asthma, tag it with TI in square brackets, I'm telling the PubMed search engine, find the word asthma in the title area. If I say white, tag it with TAU, I'm saying find the word white in the author area, because all records will be identical in terms of title coming on top, then the authors, then the journal details. So here you can see asthma is in the title, white is in the author. That's how it will find you results. So just a recap of the two fundamentals. The computer gives us results containing our search terms, and we can specify where by tagging. Based on these two, we are going to learn four principles of searching. But before that, you have to know your resource very well. So I often ask this question in a live workshop and ask people to answer this. And it's surprising that heavy PubMed users also don't answer it right. My question is, what exactly is PubMed and not what is PubMed? So I put down these four choices and people will answer one, people answer two, people answer both. But the real answer is exactly it is neither. It is a database of medical information. It is a collection of journal articles, not strictly articles. It only has the metadata of articles. It does link you to the full text, whether it's free or not. All that is decided by the publisher because it links you to the publisher's website or what are called archives. Okay, so let's go to what exactly is PubMed. PubMed is an index to articles published in around 5,000 journals. The database itself does not contain the full text articles. As I told you, it is linked to the article in the journal website or in archives like PubMed Central. The database contains bibliographic details or metadata and abstract where available. If an author has written an abstract, PubMed will show the abstract. If the author has not written an abstract, PubMed doesn't show any abstract. So this is one example in PubMed. It says free article, but it only tells you that and it links you to the source, but the article is not stored inside PubMed. And in this case, you can see there's no abstract here. So let's move on to the four principles of searching using PubMed as an example. The first principle is, if you just do a word or keyword search, what happens? The results contain our term. We learned that in the first fundamental. Anywhere in the metadata area. The PubMed search engine does not go to the full text and search it because the full text is in the journal website. So the results contain our term in the bibliographic details and abstract. The second principle is, there's something called a descriptive tag search you can do, and the results contain our term in the description area. We didn't talk about the description area till now. Let's learn this now. This is the most important part of PubMed. So where is the description area? If you click a title, when you see the results page, in the inner page, as you face the page on the right side, if you look down, scroll down a little, you'll see something called mesh terms. Mesh terms is the description area. You need to click that word mesh terms. It will take you further below the abstract and gives you a list of standardized keywords. So this mesh terms is the description area. The terms below are added to most records in PubMed to describe the entire article. I'll tell you who does all this job. But for now, let's understand that this article, which you could only see an abstract of, you get to know by this list that it's about an adolescent population, adult population, diagnosis of asthma, epidemiology of asthma, methods of bronchial provocation tests, and so on. It gives a pretty detailed explanation of what all concepts are covered in the entire article. So how do we ask that our search term must appear in this area? Search method is asthma tagged with mesh. Earlier we saw TI for title, AU for author. Asthma tagged with mesh, we are saying to the PubMed search engine, please find the term asthma in the list of mesh terms. That's the area we want you to look at for the presence of this word. So in other words, we are saying find asthma in this area, and asthma is there as two keywords with subheadings of diagnosis and epidemiology. The descriptive terms in PubMed are added by specialist indexers. They are trained in the art of reading articles and indexing them. They are subject specialists. They describe the entire article, and they are all, these indexers are from the National Library of Medicine where PubMed is created. They are subject specialists. They have access to the whole article. They read them and add these standard keywords. There's a list of standard keywords from which they will have to add it. We learn a little about that in a few minutes. The third principle is a very easy to use principle. Factual tag search. We learned author and title. We learned some more. The results contain a term in different specific areas. So we can search for the phrase pharmacological therapy in the title if you tag it with title, White as the author, and so on. So let's learn some more. If I search with the tag drugs, the word drugs with the tag TI, PubMed will look for it in the title. TIAB means title as well as abstract. Some cases it will be in the title, some cases it will be in the abstract alone, some cases in both the areas. JOUR, the journal title drugs. If I type drugs tagged with JOUR, I'm asking all my results should be from the journal title drugs. White, AU, we learnt earlier. Drugs, AD means the author's address. Short form for address is AD. Mesh, we learnt in the second principle. For numbers, we have page for page number, PDAT or DP for year, that is publication date or date of publication. There are many, many more tags, but these are the most common tags that we use while searching PubMed specifically. What are the contexts? We could search for articles by an author, then you tag your search term with AU. In a specific journal, write the journal name, tag it with JOUR. From a specific institution, write the name of the institution, tag it with AD. Last principle is how do we combine many search terms, two or more, because very rarely we are searching for a single word. So by now we understand this is not how we type in our search terms in PubMed, because we have not tagged them at all. Plus, if we combine the terms with conjunctions and prepositions like of and in, then PubMed simply ignores those underlined terms. So let's learn how to combine search terms correctly. We have got to combine search terms with and, or, not, all in capitals for PubMed, and these terms are called Boolean operators. So Boolean operators are used in other databases also. Right now I'm going to talk about how they are used in PubMed. So let's say I searched PubMed for the word asthma, and we know results contain the word asthma. Let's imagine we got just 100 results, which isn't true of course, but this is for this exercise. Separately, I searched the word bronchitis. Let's say I got 70 results. How do we do combinations? I put those numbers up there. If I type asthma and bronchitis as a search, what we are asking for is how many items in PubMed contain asthma and bronchitis together. It could be in the title, it could be in the abstract, because we haven't tagged our search, but somewhere in the record, both terms have to be present. So it's obviously less than 70, maximum could be 70 theoretically. Let's say we got 45 results. Asthma or bronchitis, our question really is, how many contain at least one term, either asthma or bronchitis or both together, minimum one term. So some cases it will be both the terms. Here, it's very easy for us to say 170, but real answer is 100 minus 45 plus 70. Why is that? In the 100, we already have 45 that have bronchitis. So it will remove that 45 and then add the 70 of bronchitis, or other way of understanding is 100 plus 70 minus the 45 tickets. So you get 125. Find asthma, not bronchitis. How many records contain the word asthma, but from that, how many do not contain bronchitis? So here it will be 100 minus 45. 100 contain asthma, out of which 45 contain bronchitis. So remove the 45 from 100, you get 55. So principle 4, if we summarize, when you combine two or more terms, you must use Boolean operators. When you use AND, every result contains every search term. If you use 5 terms, every result must contain all 5. So your results get less and less and less. Or is the opposite, not. Every result contains the first. From that number, it does not contain the second. From that number, it does not contain the third, and so on. For and all, just try to remember it's the opposite of our English usage. Because in English, if I say I want malaria and dengue, we are imagining that you have a collection of malaria books, collection of dengue books, and you're combining both together. But here it is how many contain both the terms. So the results will be less. Or in English, we imagine only we are limiting to one, but here it is everything together. Let's do a quick recap of the 4 principles. If your search method is a pure word search, results contain our terms anywhere in the bibliographic record. Mesh search, it will contain our terms in the list of mesh terms. Any other field tags, that is A, U, T, I, etc., in the fields we specify. Searching using Boolean operators, results contain our terms in combinations we specify. I'll quickly demonstrate some exercises of using all these principles. So when you input your search terms, you put in a word or a number, tag it. Then add the Boolean operator. Again, a word or number, tag it. Example, my word is diabetes, I tagged it with title. Or my word is hypertension, I tagged it with TI. So which means I want results that have either diabetes or hypertension or both coming in the title. Stem cell transplantation mesh. I want articles about stem cell transplantation and 2016 DP. That means how many of these are published in the year 2016. That is, in every result, it has to be about stem cell transplantation. It has to be published in 2016. So let's do some exercises. I remember an article about asthma appearing on page 143. So about asthma will be asthma mesh, 143 page. So when you combine it, you'll add the Boolean and, because both conditions are compulsory. My HOD told me to read up articles by N.D. Brown in the journal Pediatrics. So every journal, every result you get, author has to be N.D. Brown, journal has to be Pediatrics. So you put in your author query as surname followed by initials. So Brown, N.D. tagged with AU and Pediatrics tagged with JOUR. Now just note your search term and the tags can be in any case, capital, small, etc. Boolean operator, make it in capitals. one topic search, I want to quickly read up something on use of antioxidants in cataract as well as use of antioxidants in glaucoma. So in such cases, we've got to do a little planning first. My recommendation is always write it on a piece of paper with a pen or use Microsoft Word or whatever word processor and put down this plan activity. So think of your results. Every result item must contain antioxidants for sure, either cataract or glaucoma or both together. So some results will be antioxidants with cataract, some with glaucoma, some with both. This visualization has to be very clear. So when we know that the terms we are going to search are antioxidants, cataract, glaucoma, first add Boolean operators. So antioxidants and cataract or glaucoma, but we need to put them in the correct order, because if we type it as above, it will first search everything with antioxidants and cataract, make a set of that, combine that with everything with glaucoma. So that will be the first set, that will be a second set, and both will be combined to get a hodgepodge of results. So what is the correct order? Cataract or glaucoma and antioxidants. So first it will search everything that has either cataract or glaucoma or both together. The and antioxidants will be inside that set. Inside that set, how many have the word antioxidants? So this clarity has to be there every time that you're doing a search with more than 2 topics. Next, for tagging your search terms. If I want to quickly get some articles, I just want to read a small handful of them, I will tag each term with TI. Because if I see them in the title, I know out of the 50 or 25 that I got, which 2 or 3 I want to read based on what the rest of the title is. But if I get only 1 or 2 results, I can expand my search by saying TIAB. I go through the abstract because I'll get more obviously. I go through the abstract and then decide which I want to use. But finally, when I want to do a proper research, I have to tag them with MESH. Every article which is either about cataract or glaucoma or both together, and within that about antioxidants. Okay. So this is how you have to plan your literature search. So again, a quick revision. First, we talked about 2 fundamentals, that results contain our terms and we can tag our terms to say where. 4 principles: plain word search, descriptive tag search, which in PubMed is MESH, factual tag search, which is all the other tags, and combination searches. Boolean operators, type them in capitals. Tags have to be in square brackets. All this is very PubMed specific. Okay? Other databases may have other variations. Now that we know the 4 principles, let's learn a little more about MESH. Okay? What is MESH? Full form is medical subject headings. It's a collection of standard terms. You can't just type any term in PubMed and tag it with MESH. It has to be just like when you play word games, you can't just make up your own words. They have to come from a recognized dictionary or any other resource. So just like that, MESH searching has to be done only with standard terms. The terms from this collection are used to tag or describe every article by those professional indexers. They also can't tag the article with anything they think of. They have to see the thesaurus standard terms and use only those terms. So searching with MESH, first we have to find the right MESH term from the thesaurus. Where is the thesaurus? This is the PubMed homepage. If you scroll a little, you will see on the right side, as you view the page on the right side, MESH database. Click this link. You leave PubMed and you're in the MESH database. So I'm demonstrating a term, pregnancy-induced diabetes. If I want literature on this, I type it in, I click search. I'm told the term is diabetes gestational or gestational diabetes. Just below the term, you have a small paragraph called the scope notes. That is, in what context will an indexer use this? So diabetes induced by pregnancy but resolved at the end. It does not include, sorry, diabetes induced by pregnancy but resolved at the end. It does not include previously diagnosed diabetics who become pregnant. For such articles, an indexer will use pregnancy in diabetics. Okay. So once we are clear, we want to use diabetes gestational. We click this button called Add to Search Builder. Diabetes gestational will come into this box, and then if you click Search PubMed, you're taken back to PubMed and you can read up articles on gestational diabetes. So this is where you find your right term. You can add it to the search builder and search. You reach PubMed and you've done your search. So for a single term, this is how it works. Okay. Let's do a topic search, the same one which we just talked about, antioxidants for cataract as well as for glaucoma. So each of these terms, we will search them in the MESH database and then do it. So I'm typing the first term, glaucoma. Now, whether you type glaucoma or cataract, cataract or glaucoma, that doesn't matter. So I type glaucoma, search. I have a list of MESH terms which contain the word glaucoma. I choose the first one, which is glaucoma. I select it. I click Add to Search Builder. It types in glaucoma MESH. Now I can't click Search PubMed now because I have to finish building my search. So now I erase glaucoma and type cataract here, searching the second term. Click Search. This time I have a list of terms. I select cataract, which is my main term. Before adding it to the search builder, I have to change the and to or. This is why I emphasize always do your work on a word processor or pen and paper before you actually do the search, because you could quite well forget it while doing it here. So if you keep referring to your original and then do this, it helps. So cataract or glaucoma. So I've chosen or, click Add to Search Builder. It puts in or cataract MESH. Now I erase cataract in the search box and type in antioxidants. And after clicking search, I get the third one. This I have to add with and. So just add to search builder. It types in and antioxidants MESH. Now click search PubMed and we have our full search done. I recommend that till you're very familiar with MESH terms, always go to the MESH database and then start. Because if you come here and type, then sometimes even if a term is not a MESH term, it will do some other translations and get you results. Whatever I'm recommending now is for narrowing down your searches to manageable numbers. There are times when you have to do a non-tagged search when you don't want to miss any literature. But at this level, it's good to learn how to get specific results. Okay. So in the MESH database, when you're searching the MESH database, you can search only one term at a time. In the PubMed search box, you can put in many terms with and, or, etc. But in the MESH database, one by one you search it, and as you find a term, add it to the builder, then look for the second, and so on. Okay. You can also use subheadings. A drug, in a minute I'll show you how you find them. Adverse effects of a drug, if that's your top topic, like paracetamol, adverse effects, poisoning by a drug, fentanyl poisoning, surgery for hernia / surgery. So this is how your search has to happen. How do you find the subheading in the MESH database is, when you find your MESH term, like we found cataract glaucoma, don't straight away add it to search builder, click the term. When you click, you get a display of such subheadings. So I'm just showing you for asthma. If I want etiology of asthma, in the middle row, they are all arranged alphabetically. In the middle row, I have etiology. I would click this and then say add to search builder. So in the search builder, it will put asthma / etiology MESH. That's how you use subheading searches. One more useful feature in PubMed. There's something called a single citation matcher. Remember that anything that you find, you want to also reference. So let's show you some example here. Let's say you went for a conference presentation. I told you that when you present at a conference, anything like this, you need to reference. And here below we have this Kumar V, etc. That the speaker who's presented this slide has said, I have taken this figure from this particular item. So this is that speaker's item, which is Kumar V as the author. Partial title is Forecasting Malaria. 2014 is the year. Now this is incomplete. Okay. Let's say I have sat in the audience and I found that slide very interesting. I want to get my hands on this article. I didn't have time to speak with the speaker later. I come to PubMed. Again, in the lower level, there is a link called Single Citation Matcher. I click here. I get a screen like this. So here's my original, the incomplete citation. I just need to populate this search boxes. So Kumar V, I put in the author name, Forecasting Malaria, title words, 2014 date. We don't have the other details, including the name of the journal. Click search and PubMed translates your query to a term with tags. 2014 PDAT and Kumar V author and Forecasting Malaria, and gets you this one single result. 15 seconds to get this. Of course, this should have been from a PubMed journal, only then it will come. But lots of them are, so we have it here. Now, this article happens to be free. We read it and we want to cite it in something that we are writing. So there's a very easy option. There's a cite option here. If you click there, then the whole citation comes up. You can click copy and you can paste it in wherever you are writing. So this way, the number of features in PubMed are huge. What I'm presenting to you in this last few minutes has been just the cream of how you can use PubMed. There's lots and lots more. Okay? So even with this much, you could realize how many hours you could save instead of just blindly typing in something, searching and going through pages and pages of results. So again, a recap, 3 types of information resources: basic learning like textbooks, etc., research, journals and grey literature, synthesis, which was evidence, that is systematic reviews, guidelines and summaries. PubMed, we learned the word search, mesh search, field search, Boolean operators, that was the 4 principles, and the single citation matcher, a very useful feature. This again, and back to our website. If you, the arrow is pointing to workshops, it should point to online courses. If you click there, this is a brand new second site we've made just this month, qmedcourses.in. If you come in here, you'll find that there are 3 courses. The first is information resources and literature searching. Whatever I've taught you now is available in a little more detail with, of course, I've covered more of information resources and literature, not the referencing part, but these 2 elements are covered in good detail. You only have to register and it's free to do. Okay? So there are videos, there are MCQs, there's a final assessment and you get a certificate as well. Strongly recommended, register and do it. One word of caution, when you register on the website, you will get an email from an ID called support@qmedcourses.in. Because our site is new, it tends to go to spam. So when you register, just remember to look into your spam folder because you'll get a message saying you would have received an email. Please click on the link in that email. So just check your spam folder, find it, click the link and you're automatically registered. 2 more courses are Mastering PubMed. PubMed in very great detail. Reference Management with Mendeley, again in very good detail. What is great about these courses is no video is longer than 12 minutes. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 7 minutes, etc. And you can do all of them at your pace, little by little. Do the MCQs for revision, do the final assessment to learn really well. And you can revise them at any time. You can't download any of it, but you can revise it. You can do this on a laptop. You can do it very well on a mobile app. It works beautifully in both. So for these 2 courses and for all future courses that we plan to add Zotero, we plan to add other databases, etc., You just have to give a small donation for accessing any of them. Once you give, it's for all courses, not for only one at a time. The amount is going to be 2,000, but from the date we launched it in June till 30th June, it is 1,500. After that, the donation we asked for is going to be 2,000. And as I said, more courses that we add will also be available as and when we add them. Plus, you also get support. The few people who've completed courses, they've given us a 10 out of 10 for the support that we've offered. Of course, so far it's been more technical, but if there is doubt solving, etc., we will do our best to help you with all that. Okay. So these are my contact details. Of course, the landline number right now, nobody will answer because of the lockdown. That's my mobile, but info@qmed.ngo will be much preferable because either me or my colleagues will answer this. So with that, I come to the end and I'd be happy to answer questions that you might have. So Manali, could I stop sharing now so that I can view people?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay, so ma'am, we have quite a few questions in the chat box. Others who have not actually typed their question can put up their questions in the chat box. So our first question is, what are the good and bad points about Mendeley and Zotero?
Okay, that's a slightly tough question because the ones which I have noted, I used Zotero quite long back. At that time, it was tied to one single browser. I believe it is now browser independent, which is a good thing. Another good thing I found in Zotero is I can export results to Excel, which I can't do in Mendeley. So this way there are different pluses and minuses. And in the end, it's a lot about what you get comfortable with. So I would say start with anyone, but once you get very familiar and you start feeling I need this feature, just do a Google search to see is that available in Zotero. Most often you get your answer through some forum of the other. And then it's very easy to migrate your collection from one database to another. So that's never a problem.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, where can we find unpublished research?
Okay, so unpublished research, just give me a second. One I mentioned was clinical trial registries. Okay, so in India, we have a clinical trials registry of India, CTRI. You can either Google CTRI or Google clinical trials registry of India. That is one. Then unpublished, there's one which I learned recently, which is medRxiv, if I remember right. Then unpublished, I would even request if Dr. Medha Joshi is there and if she can answer this, I could request her to unmute her mic and add something. Medha, are you there? Probably not. Maybe she had to leave in between.
Ma'am, I think she's there.
Okay.
Medha ma'am, could you just put it up in the chat box or unmute yourself?
If you can add any resource on grey literature in... I've just gone slightly blank at the moment. Okay, maybe we can take this again. So anyway, otherwise you can mail me these questions and I could always, we could put it up somewhere again.
Right.
Yeah.
So our next question is, could you elaborate on the benefits of mesh terms over advanced search?
Okay, actually, you know, there are two different things that they are not meant to be compared at all. Mesh search, the mesh database is where you find your correct mesh terms. You want articles about a topic and you want focused results. You start in the mesh database if you are not sure about your term. You find your correct mesh term, if needed, the correct subheadings. And as I showed you, add to search builder, click search PubMed, and you've done your search. I haven't demonstrated the advanced search page, but some of you may be familiar with it. if you go to the PubMed advanced search page, you can choose your field of searching. So if you choose mesh and you type a term there and then go ahead and search, it does not only search the mesh term, it searches for alternatives as well. So sometimes it is rather irrelevant there. Using the advanced search page, one has to remember you have to know your basics well and then only go there. So I never teach the advanced in the basic training. So just to recap, mesh is a database of terms. You have to find your best mesh term and then you have to do your search. Advanced search page is for advanced combinations of different kinds of searches. Okay? Just to give a small example, if I'm searching for malaria and artesunate in the advanced search, then I may get certain results. I make a set of how many of them have abstracts. Then I want a set of how many of them don't have abstracts. All that is possible in the advanced search. Or if I want to make sure I have not missed any term which means, let's say, malaria. So I'm looking for old terms like black water fever, etc. I'm typing all those terms, combining them with OR, and then searching. So those are times when you go to the advanced search. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Our next question is, ma'am, in the first example with page 143, will the page number not change due to various other researches added on in the list?
So this the example that I did of page 143, I showed a real example later, which is, I remember reading an article about asthma on page 143 of a journal. Sometimes we have silly reasons for remembering that page 143. Okay, so you just happen to remember those two and you're combining. The page 143 is something that doesn't change in the journal. That is standard. Okay, so that's the page number on which the article starts. So I haven't really understood whether it says page number not changed due to various other researches added on the list. This is not the article number something, it's the page number on which the article comes. I hope I've answered whoever questions it was.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I think.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to ask anything?
Yeah, Dr. Amol Hartarkar has just typed in, for unpublished references, thesis are a resource. As I said, clinical trials registry, then conference presentations, all of them. There's something called preprints. That's what I'll just see if I can find that med archive. 1 second. I learned about it very recently. Okay, there's something called, I'll type it in the chat box, MEDRXIV. This is a medical archive, okay? So where people, the precursor of this, there's one which is just archive, which is spelled ARXIV. Archive.org was a very old preprint database of physics articles. So researchers would, when they wrote their basic articles, they would just upload it there before they actually did anything formal with it, for researchers to know what people are doing now. In India, it hasn't become very popular. I think people are afraid that their results will get stolen or something like that. But if you put your paper or your results in medRxiv, for instance, the date on which you've put it in remains. So you can always claim that you thought of this first. Nobody else can steal your idea. But seeing that, you may get ideas for other research you'd like to do. So that's what unpublished literature is all about, where it's not reached a final journal for a publication. Yeah. Any more questions?
Anyone else wants to ask anything?
So one popular question that is always asked is, what do we do for full text articles? I know that today there's a very popular pirated site, but that is what it is. It's not really ethical to use that one. in our website, qmed.ngo, there is a section called resources. If you go in there, you'll find one which says finding full text articles. So you can go through that, where I've highlighted different options by which you can get full text articles. Okay. Another popular question is, what exactly is open access articles? So there's a word free, there's word open access. There is a difference, because free is the publisher has decided it is, I will make this article or this issue or this set of articles free. Whereas open access means a completely different thing. A publisher decides that his or her journal is open access, maybe from the day it is published, or maybe after 6 months, after 1 year of publication, etc. And for that, they often collect a fee from the author's institution for publishing the article, so that readers get it free. So this is a very small explanation of open access. I was just attending a webinar on open access before this one, where a senior colleague of mine was, very experienced colleague of mine was talking, and he was saying the world is moving towards open access for a number of reasons, and we all hope that it will happen, because research really should be available to all. Okay, so before we still managed to finish well in time, so I'm happy about it.
We are really sorry about the thing that happened.
Don't worry about it. We are all learning, so it's something that just happened.
Yes, ma'am. Could you just, encourage and motivate us about research and how to go ahead and, start with it?
Okay. So I think one of the things you should do for that is read a lot. Just make it a habit of reading some of the popular journals like New England Journal, Lancet, PMJ, etc. And maybe there are some student journals in some places. Make it a habit of reading, because I'll tell you, in childhood I was a big Enid Blyton fan, and I think a lot of my English came from there, and writing styles, punctuation, use of words, etc. So same way, the more and more you read journal articles, you get an idea as to how articles should be written. That is one. Then, just out of interest, glance through that instructions to authors in different journals. So you get that idea. So little by little, there's always something to pick up. To do research, now the common trend is what your faculty member wants you to do, you end up doing it. Whether you like it or not, I would say just do it, because that gives you the experience. But the best research happens when, if you have seen a patient and you wonder, why is it like this? Why not like this? Then that could be a research topic. So first you must find out more about that disease, that condition. Do general reading. The reading becomes the bottom line of the whole thing. Then the methodologies and all that, there are enough teachers to teach you all that. But nothing substitutes the habit of reading. Today you even have podcasts and things like that. So whatever you can, nothing like more of all that. And of course, attend such webinars. There are so many. Right. And I would recommend go through the first online course of ours, because that's free. And the second and third, according to me, the earlier you do it, the better is your PG, the better is your practice days, everything. Because one constant feedback I get in all my workshops is, I wish I had learned this earlier.
Yes, ma'am. Very true.
Huge amount of time, and it definitely gets you better research, because I've had PG students telling me, thanks to having attended this, my protocol got accepted without any change. Of course, this content was also good, no question. You can't just reference correctly and get away with it, that kind. So the question, any registry to find out all the journals available in a particular specialty. So one easy recommendation I have for that question is, in PubMed, I showed you where the mesh database is. Just below that, there is a journals in NCBI databases. Again, our tutorial covers how to search that in very good depth. but just browse that to start with. You type in your specialty name and you'll get a good number out of that. How to exploit it further is there in our online course. I think that's about it with the questions. Any last minute questions? Okay. Thanks so much, Manali and the Jigyasa team. I really enjoyed doing this. I saw your questions, so that's nice.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time and coming here to guide us on such an important topic.
My pleasure.
I would like to thank all the team members of our research council.
Yes.
And also Dr. Aarti Kinekar, ma'am. And yeah, a big thank you to the audience for staying calm through this situation and joining in again with us. Thank you so much. And I thereby conclude this session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.